a popular and fun-loving college student.
Mindy was a very bubbly person. She just always seemed to be happy. She had a light in her eyes, and she accepted everyone.
Is found savagely murdered in her apartment.
There was a belt wrapped around her neck and appeared to be a broken-off knife still stuck in her throat.
Police need to determine, was this a sinister obsession?
Mindy, I know what happened to you. You got sick, beautiful flower.
He had called and left numerous messages on her cell phone.
Just really a strange type of relationship.
A crucial piece of evidence.
There was some material under the fingernails of her left hand.
I know you got a mark on your hand. How did you get that?
Shines a light on a dangerous predator no one saw coming.
I was very shocked. I think everybody was.
He was not the man we thought he was.
I don't think I would ever get that outcome at all.
Hey Mindy, it's Danny. Anyway, you can just give me a call back. Okay, bye. Hey Mindy, good morning. Hey, Danny's trying to get over with you. Bye. Where are you? Can I?
I remember trying to call Mindy a few times and she wasn't answering. So me and my friend Danielle drove and parked in front of her apartment across the street. I ran inside. I knocked on the door and there was no answer. And it wasn't locked. And so I opened the door and I stepped in. And about 2 steps in, I saw something on the ground right in front of my feet. It was Mindy. And then I noticed something around her neck.
Horrified, Mindy's friend rushes outside to call 911.
About 10 minutes before 9 o'clock at night, dispatch called me at my house and said that they've got a hysterical caller on the phone. I got the address, and it was 1 block from my house. When I arrived, both Danielle and Tony were very distraught, very upset.
The apartment was located on the 2nd floor of the building. As I entered, I could smell a very strong odor like an ammonia disinfectant. The body of the victim was laying across the entry hallway.
And it appeared her throat had been half cut open.
Detectives begin their investigation and identify the victim as 22-year-old college senior Mindy Morgenstern.
I knew Mindy. She was a student at the college. I'd seen her at a lot of their events. And to see that it was her, I was really surprised and quite shocked.
There was a belt wrapped around her neck and appeared to be a broken-off knife still stuck in her throat.
It appeared that the belt was applied to the neck prior to the neck being cut.
Investigators find an empty bottle of disinfectant beside the body.
Somebody had poured the disinfectant over her body, possibly trying to destroy any type of evidence.
The killer tried to cover their tracks, but investigators find something they missed.
There was some material under the fingernails of her left hand where possibly Mindy had scratched her assailant.
We felt that this was going to be a DNA forensic type case based on materials that were found on Mindy's fingernails.
And to preserve that, the hands are placed in bags for autopsy. She had a purse around her right arm. Her wallet was laying just outside of the purse.
It didn't appear that they'd been gone through or anything removed from them. There was clean laundry around the body and a laundry basket. It almost appeared as if she was attacked as she was going in the door with that laundry. It did not look like the apartment had been ransacked or gone through, so it didn't appear that theft was a motive in this killing.
There was no sign of any forced entry into the apartment.
It told us that the person was either in her apartment or followed her in.
Her cell phone was located, and the first missed call on that phone was at 12:47 p.m. on September 13th. That gave us some indication as to what time the attack may have occurred.
By 10 p.m., more than 9 hours after the first missed call, detectives have little to go on as they work into the night at the crime scene.
When we first left the scene the following morning, we had no clear indication of who may have done this.
Police reach Mindy's sister to inform her of the murder, and she delivers the tragic news to her parents.
The front doorbell rang. And I said, "Who's there?" And Rebecca, our daughter, she said, "It's me, Dad. You've got some bad news."
And then Rebecca said to me that, "Mom, Mindy is dead." It was just like somebody taking a knife and just sticking it right into your heart. I just wanted to try to just say, no, this isn't real, this didn't happen. I didn't want it to be true. She had such a loving, loving heart, and I loved her very much.
Born in Bogota, Colombia on April 29th, 1984, Mindy was adopted as a baby by Valley City farmers Larry and Eunice Morgenstern.
The first time I saw Mindy, she had the biggest, darkest, most beautiful eyes that I had ever seen.
It was pretty very amazing to see this little character in the basket that she brought home to be part of our family.
Mindy was the youngest of 4 Morgenstern children, 3 of them adopted by Larry and Eunice.
Mindy was very much a tomboy. And as she grew up, she got so beautiful. She didn't really realize that she would be looked upon as somebody that would turn boys' heads.
After high school, Mindy moved to Valley City and dove headlong into college life.
She just seemed to enjoy all the friends that she had there.
Mindy was a very friendly, outgoing, bubbly person. She just always seemed to be happy.
She had a light in her eyes, and she accepted everyone.
Mindy's future was looking bright until the stunning attack that cut her down in her prime.
It was very difficult to see Mindy's body in the condition that it was in when we found her. I want to find out who did this, because she was loved by a lot of people in our community.
Back at the crime scene, Mindy's 2 friends tell detectives they weren't the only ones to see Mindy's body.
When Tony found Mindy at the scene, she screamed, which alerted a man in a neighboring apartment to come out to see what was wrong.
He was there when I first entered the apartment complex, and they showed me where Mindy was located.
He told investigators that he checked for a pulse using the back of his hand to not leave any fingerprints on the victim.
It was a little odd because people don't describe things like that, like using the back of their hand so they don't leave fingerprints and things like that.
If he was there to help, I couldn't understand why he'd be worried about something like that.
Police identify the man as Robert Linz and soon notice a telling detail about him.
He had scratches on his hands that would correspond to someone trying to get your hands off of them when they were being attacked.
Had Mindy scratched Robert as she fought for her life?
Robert Linz, having those scratches, being in the same building, he certainly needed to be looked at.
A lot of times, a person at the crime scene is a person that committed the crime. And if any evidence of them is found, they have an excuse for saying why it was there.
Coming up, detectives uncover a world of secrets.
She reminded me so much of my wife in her younger days. Like, I don't want you talking to her this time of year.
It turned out upon checking his background that he had a felony record.
And as they zero in on a killer,
I was absolutely certain we had the right guy.
a stunning setback turns the case on its head.
I just thought, it's all over with now. They're going to let him go.
This case was a shock to everybody.
When we found out who the person was, it was just, wow.
Police investigating the murder of 22-year-old college student Mindy Morgenstern have just identified their first suspect, her neighbor, Robert Linz.
When officers met Robert Linz, they noticed some scratches on his hands.
And he also used the back of his hand to see if she was deceased or not. His concern was he didn't want to leave any fingerprints or DNA in the apartment because he had nothing to do with the incident.
Suspicions aroused. Police bring Robert Linz into the station for an interview.
Who knew before? I knew her in passing, seen her every day.
All he knew about her is that she was a pretty girl and that she lived in the apartment building.
When investigators dig into Robert's history, they find something troubling.
It turned out upon checking his background that he had a felony record.
I gotta apologize. He was a strong car. My original sentence was 2 years and 8 months.
Robert Linz was in the criminal system out in California. He's street smart, and he knew not to leave fingerprints at the crime scene.
Detectives ask Robert how he got the scratches on his hands.
All your hands are really cut up and stuff. Is that normal from work?
Yeah, this is an everyday thing.
Like steel and stuff?
Yeah, all day long with steel. I get cut pretty bad. Constantly.
He claimed he worked at a place where they built steel buildings and stuff like that, and he got the bruises on his hands from his job.
Police cut to the chase and ask Robert where he was on the day Mindy was murdered.
Wasn't anything out of the ordinary, regular day work.
What time did you start?
I'm there like 5 minutes to 7.
Robert Linz told investigators that he had been at work that day from 7 in the morning, and he didn't arrive home to his apartment until about 5:30.
We talked to his employer. He did work all day. He did work with steel, so it was very easy for him to cut his hands. So there was really nothing to put him at that apartment at the time the crime occurred.
Still, police aren't ready to rule out Robert just yet.
We asked him to provide DNA sample, which he agreed to.
While they await DNA test results, police canvass Mindy's neighbors.
We were looking for anybody that might have seen something, heard something, so we can get a better timeline as far as when this might have happened.
While going door to door, investigators are pleased to see a familiar face.
As I was collecting statements outside, I saw Mo Gibbs.
He had been living in the apartment building with his wife and stepdaughter.
Mo works at the Barnes County Jail, and due to the fact that he was a correctional officer, I would run into him quite often while he was working. And I also knew Mo because we played on the co-ed softball tournament together.
A guy in his position probably would be an excellent witness if he had seen or heard anything.
Mo Gibbs said that he knew Mindy as a person that lived in the building. He had seen her come and go.
The investigator asks Mo if he noticed anything unusual that afternoon.
Mo had said that he went with his wife and stepdaughter for lunch, then came back to the apartment at about 12:45 and started packing and loading boxes as he and his wife were going to be moving out of the apartment.
He mentioned that when he went into the apartment complex, he could smell a strong, distinct odor of a disinfectant.
Other than that, he claimed that he didn't hear or see anything.
So we were working with the timeline between the first missed call at 12:47 p.m. and the disinfectant being smelled shortly after 1 o'clock p.m.
So we figured she probably was deceased prior to 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
To rule them out, police collect DNA samples from Mo and the other building residents.
All the DNA samples taken during our interviews were sent to the state crime lab.
In search of new leads, detectives turn to Mindy's loved ones.
I just didn't think there was anybody that would want to do anything like that to her.
Investigators push Mindy's parents to think hard about anyone who might have had a problem with her.
Mindy's mother mentioned that Tony had this boyfriend that wasn't such a nice person. His name was James.
I was dating James Robinson at the time, and he was doing some bad things, and I was taking the brunt of it. And Mindy didn't really care for him because she had known that there was times that it got pretty scary.
Mindy did bring him up at one time, something about him being on drugs or something.
Mindy was trying to get Tony to quit seeing James, and that may give him some reason to hold a grudge against Mindy.
This James Robinson didn't look like he wanted his girlfriend, Tony, to be friends with Mindy.
She did, obviously like a friend does, get out, you need to leave. He's not a good guy. This isn't a good relationship.
In trying to help her friend, had Mindy made a deadly enemy.
Seemed like the attack was personal in nature. It made me think that maybe this guy had something to do with her death.
Investigators are hunting for the killer of popular college student Mindy Morgenstern. They now suspect James Robinson, who may have held a grudge against Mindy for trying to turn his girlfriend, Tony, against him.
So James was called in to do an interview to see what we could glean from him.
Did you know Mindy pretty well?
I knew her from going to visit Tony at work, and she'd be there or whatever. We'd get together every once in a while, go out and eat her.
Police ask James if he has a criminal record.
James said that he had, in the past, had trouble with illegal drugs. He had been charged, but he was trying to stay out of that lifestyle.
As James talks, detectives notice suspicious cuts on his hands.
Shoot your hand. Looks like you
Yeah, it went right through a window. Blood like something fierce.
looks pretty fresh.
Police press James on his whereabouts at the time of the murder.
What were you doing during the day? I know I had 4 hours of community service stuff to do.
James told investigators that he went to do community service from these previous charges. He then went to a friend's house and went back home sometime 5 o'clock or later. We checked, and it was verified that he had been at those locations that day.
Even though James's alibi checks out, investigators collect a DNA sample in order to officially rule him out. As they review evidence from the crime scene, autopsy results arrive.
The autopsy of Mindy's body indicated that she had died from asphyxiation and due to the cuts to her neck. There was no indication that Mindy had been sexually assaulted.
Still awaiting results on DNA collected from Mindy's fingernails, detectives turn to her coworkers for new leads.
Mindy had been working at a restaurant in Valley City as a waitstaff. It was important to interview Mindy's co-workers and see if they knew of anyone unusual in the restaurant that stood out to them. There was a man that lived in a motorhome across the street from the restaurant.
Mindy told co-workers that he made her feel really uneasy, and he was always in there bothering them. So, hearing that information, we decided to interview him.
What's your full name? Ralph Albert Walter. So how long you been in Valley City?
Well, I don't know. You could say I'm a drifter, but,
Mr. Walters didn't have any ties to the area, just kind of an odd character.
You remember anything particular you did on Wednesday?
Oh, that was the day that changed the oil in the motorhome.
He really didn't have a good alibi for when Mindy was murdered.
Just as with previous suspects, detectives spot a potentially damning clue.
I know you got that mark on your hand. How did you get that?
When I put that oil filter on.
Have you had any type of altercation or disagreement in any of the restaurants with anybody?
Can't think of any.
He claimed he never bothered anybody in the restaurant where Mindy worked. Claimed he didn't know who she was.
But Mindy's coworkers tell a different story.
They all said that he was in there quite often.
Mr. Walters would have seen her coming and going at least. Would that give him a reason to follow her? We really didn't know at that point.
Red flags were waving, of course, but I was real careful not to jump to any conclusions too early on in the investigation.
Detectives collect Ralph's DNA and let him go, but they're not ready to clear him just yet.
We keep him on the list. We're hoping DNA samples, if he was involved, would eventually tie him into it.
2 days after the murder, the wait for answers starts to take a toll on Mindy's family.
That was the hard part, not knowing what was going on and what happened and why.
It was like living someplace in another world, and you just wanted answers.
3 days into the investigation, detectives catch a break when they find disturbing voicemails left on Mindy's phone after she was dead. Detectives search the number and discover that it belongs to a man named Rodney Kuznia.
After Mindy had passed away, he had called and left numerous messages on her cell phone.
Investigators rush to find out who Rodney Kuznia is and why he called Mindy after her murder.
Mindy's friends had told us about a previous boyfriend by the name of Kyle Kuznia. They had been very serious and they had broken up the prior year. Mindy's phone indicated a lot of calls between me and Kyle's father, Rodney.
We thought this was really odd because why would an ex-boyfriend's father be so interested in Mindy?
There was some indication from Mindy's friends that Mindy had told Rodney to quit calling her.
It's been 3 days since 22-year-old Mindy Morgenstern was found brutally murdered in her apartment. Police have a new suspect, an ex-boyfriend's father who left suspicious voicemails for Mindy after her death.
Mindy, this is Rod. I know what happened to you. I love hearing your voice. I can't take this. I love you, kid. God picked a beautiful flower. I'm sorry that happened that way. It happened to you.
It just was really odd why Mindy's ex-boyfriend's father was leaving these messages, why he was so infatuated with her, and obviously he had feelings for her.
Eager to learn more about Mindy's communication with Rodney, detectives start by questioning his son, Kyle.
Kyle was Mindy's ex-boyfriend, and Mindy, I think, still had feelings for Kyle.
It was found that Kyle had broken off his relationship with her a year before and was planning to get married to someone else and had really had very little contact with Mindy since that time that they had broken up.
I feel a little bad. I mean, I could have handled it a little different.
Have you had any other contact with her?
No, that was the last time I ever talked to her. I know she would kind of get information kind of through my dad. Him and her would continue to talk.
After verifying that Kyle was working out of town on the day of the murder, detectives turn their questions to his father's relationship with Mindy.
It's like, I don't want you talking to her. 10, 20 years down the road, you guys are still going to be talking, and it's kind of weird.
It is kind of weird.
Yeah.
It was actually ruining his relationship with his father because Rodney was so involved with Mindy still.
I even asked my dad, because I would appreciate it if you guys would stop talking.
Rod Kuznia had an almost unhealthy amount of contact with Mindy, and then that continued even after Kyle and Mindy broke up.
The calls were very frequent, like multiple times daily, and it really made us wonder, did Mindy want him to quit calling her? Did that make him angry?
Detectives bring Rodney Kuznia in for an interview.
He was at least in his 50s, and we weren't sure what it was that he wanted out of Mindy.
You and Mindy became, you call it, friend. She dated your son.
Correct.
I don't understand the relationship.
Well, you definitely know Mindy. She was quite the bubbly character. She reminded me so much of my wife in her younger days.
Detectives press Rodney about the messages he left after hearing of Mindy's death.
I didn't call after I heard the fact that left the message. I know it's really stupid to do that, but I heard to pick up and what did you tell her? Oh God, take the perfect flower.
It was just really a strange type of relationship between a man that was her boyfriend's father and her.
Detectives press Rodney on his whereabouts at the time of the murder.
Rod Kuznia indicated that he was working on his farm with his two sons from 7 in the morning till early in the evening.
We checked and verified that, yes, he had been at work that day.
Detectives collect DNA from Rodney, but with nothing concrete against him, they must let him go.
We still thought that it was such an odd relationship that we certainly wouldn't close the book on looking at Rodney any further.
pressure to find Mindy's killer only increases as the community becomes gripped by fear.
It was super scary because you didn't know who it was. Could have been anybody. You were scared to go out by yourself. You were scared to do anything. It wasn't safe Little Valley City anymore.
6 days after the murder, Mindy's funeral draws hundreds of mourners.
We had the funeral at the high school gym because we didn't think that everybody could fit into the church while there was over 500 people at the funeral. The police told us they would have some undercover agents watching because they didn't know for sure if this person was, after her or after us. And you get kind of paranoid of anything like that happening until they finally catch the right person.
The day after Mindy's funeral, investigators received surprising news from the crime lab.
The state crime lab called and said that we have a positive match of the DNA.
The DNA extracted from under the fingernails of Mindy matched an unsolved brutal sexual assault in Fargo 2 years previously.
And when we found out who the person was, it was just kind of silence. Then there was a shock.
1 week after the murder of 22-year-old Mindy Morgenstern, detectives received DNA test results that turned the case on its head.
The DNA from every one of the suspects, Koznia, Walters, Lind, and others, all came back as a match to the DNA found under Mindy's fingernails.
I asked, who is it? They told me it was Mo Gibbs.
When they got the match, it was just, wow.
The DNA match of Mo Gibbs was really unexpected for us.
I knew him personally. He was a correctional officer, and it really caught me off guard that somebody in the law enforcement community would have done something like this.
When detectives look deep into Mo's background, they discover a hidden past.
Mo Gibbs was not the man we thought he was. When we started digging into his background, we had found out that he'd actually changed his name. We found out that he was involved in a drive-by shooting, and he had served 5 years in prison.
Also, his DNA matched this reported rape in Fargo from 2 years previously.
Given Mo's violent criminal past, detectives come up with a strategy to lure him into the station.
We had called Mo and asked him if he would be willing to come in, just to eliminate him as a suspect.
We're playing on his friendship with law enforcement. The idea was to get him in, lock him into a story, and then immediately give him the polygraph.
Mo Gibbs lived in the apartment building that Mindy lived in, and he said that he had seen her around, but he really didn't know her at all. Mo said that he had worked at the jail the previous night, had gotten home about 7 in the morning, and then he started packing and loading boxes out of the apartment.
Anything unusual that you noticed in the apartment building?
Nope. I didn't notice anything out of the ordinary the whole day. I was back and forth.
Scratches were observed on Mo's hands, and Mo stated that he got those scratches from moving boxes. The polygraph operator asked him if he'd ever been in Mindy's room or in her apartment.
I went to her place one time. That was probably either a week and a half or 2 weeks ago.
He stated that she was trying to carry a laundry basket and some other things all at the same time, and he assisted her in carrying that laundry to her apartment.
I'm thinking that he wanted to have an excuse for having evidence in that apartment.
With Mo's story in place, the polygraph can begin.
Regarding Mindy's death, do you intend to truthfully answer those questions?
Yes.
Did you injure Mindy and cause her death?
No.
At the conclusion of the polygraph examination, the examiner felt that there was some indication of deception.
There's a little bit of indication there that something is bothering you about this, and I guess I just want to try and get it resolved.
I mean, I don't know nothing about it. As far as anything else, I wasn't there, so it's not bothering me that I know. Because I know I wasn't there.
Okay. What do you know about DNA?
Nothing.
Nothing. How would you feel if I told you that your DNA matches DNA that we found on Mindy's body?
I'd be like, I wasn't true. So I know I wasn't there. So
At that point, we didn't think that he was really going to ever admit to anything, at least that day.
We're in a bind here. Your DNA is matching what we found on her under her fingernails.
I don't know how my DNA was under her fingernails.
When we get DNA back though, and it says this is the person that matches this person out of so many million, we can't argue with that, Mo. Plus, I'm going to let you in on something else here. The DNA that they match, that they brought up, it also matches the DNA that was found on a girl that was actually assaulted 2 years ago in Fargo.
Okay.
He was arrested immediately after that interview and charged with murder.
Could you stand up, please, and put your hand behind your back? We have an arrest warrant for the murder of Mindy Morgenstern.
News of Mo's arrest opens a floodgate of shocking accusations.
A number of female inmates in the jail where Mo Gibbs worked came forward and said he's been doing sexual stuff to us in the jail for weeks or months.
Mo is charged with 6 felonies for the sexual assaults and 1 count of first-degree murder.
It was a very, very much shock when they revealed who was arrested.
I was very surprised and very shocked due to the fact I knew him personally, but it was a great feeling to get the person who had done this horrific crime.
We went to trial in Minot, North Dakota, provided evidence to the jury there about the DNA under her fingernails, the scratches on his hand.
Despite the evidence against him, Mo's lawyers mount a strong defense.
Their argument was the DNA found in Mindy's fingernails was probably touch DNA that she got from doorknobs that Mo Gibbs had been touching.
I went into the jury deliberations believing strongly that we'd proved our case beyond a reasonable doubt.
On July 12, 2007, the jury returns to the courtroom with news that takes everyone by surprise.
The jury deliberated for a fair period of time and came back as a hung jury and could not reach a decision.
We were so sure he was gonna go down, but they just got him off. You kind of went home and you were thinking, what are we gonna do now?
Corrections Officer Mo Gibbs has just been tried for the murder of 22-year-old Mindy Morgenstern. But when the verdict comes back, a hung jury, Mindy's loved ones are left fearing the worst.
I was very shocked. I think everybody was. I don't think I would ever expect that outcome at all.
When we heard it was a hung jury, I just thought, oh, it's all over with now. They're gonna let him go.
Was it possible that Mo had not killed Mindy after all? Or was a murderer about to go free?
When a hung jury like that happens, it's extremely disappointing and hard to understand for people because it's just a temporary setback.
I was absolutely certain we had the right guy.
In the Minot trial, the defense, the one thing they really hung their hat on was that trying to say it was just touch DNA.
We felt it was obvious that to get DNA under your fingernails, it wasn't from touching any kind of doorknob.
So we wanted to totally rule that out, and we're able to find another expert to help us do that.
On October 22nd, 2007, more than a year after Mindy's murder, Mo Gibbs goes to trial for the second time.
The expert described this as a vigorous assault. The amount of DNA was not from touching a doorknob or a laundry basket.
The prosecution lays out further evidence, carefully building the case against Mo.
Mo Gibbs' phone was seized after his arrest. There were never times when he went for an hour or more that he was not texting or doing something with his phone.
He got off at 7 in the morning from his shift, and he was continually either emailing or texting people until he had to go pick up his fiancée to go to lunch. He dropped her back off around 12:30 or 1 o'clock, and that's when we believe he came back to the apartment building. Mindy's last missed call was at 12:47 that day, and for the next 2 hours, Mo Gibbs was doing something else other than sending texts or sending emails.
With DNA and other evidence placing Mo at the scene, the prosecution lays out their theory of the murder.
I believe that Mindy was carrying clothes into her apartment, and Mo Gibbs was in the hallway and got her in there and pushed her on the floor and attempted to rape her.
I think Mindy fought back, and things went drastically wrong.
I think what happened was he tried strangling her with a belt. It wasn't going as he wanted it to. She wasn't dying fast enough. So he got a knife and he stabbed her. And then when he got done, he finds a cleaning solution, dumps it on her body. And then he gets the heck out of there.
Then he starts back with the texting and emailing and went on with his life.
As Mo's second murder trial concludes, prosecutors have one final card to play.
There was a cellmate of Mo Gibbs while he was awaiting trial that had told investigators that Mo had admitted to killing Mindy.
Gibbs had told him that he'd done it. He'd do it again if he had the opportunity.
As the jury deliberates for a second time, Mindy's loved ones nervously await the outcome.
And I was wondering, what's going on? I wanted to know things. I wanted to hear what was coming out of their mouths.
On November 16, 2007, after deliberating for over 27 hours, the jury returns with the verdict.
We, the jury, do find the defendant, Mo M. Gibbs, guilty of the crime of murder.
For killing Mindy Morgenstern, Mo Gibbs is sentenced to life without parole.
He got a 12-year sentence on the unsolved rape and 15 years on the jail sexual assaults that had happened.
It was a relief that they finally caught the person and he wasn't going to be out there to do it to somebody else again.
The fact that Mo Gibbs is going to be in prison, it was finally over with. We could finally go on and just try to get through life the rest of the time that we had.
Mo got what he deserved. Because of Mindy's actions and her strength, we were able to get the DNA that we needed, and that DNA helped us solve this case.
Though justice is served, nothing can dull the pain of Mindy's loss.
Oh, I miss Mindy so much.
19-year-old Canadian Ashley Wadsworth is found dead in Chelmsford, England.
All the messages said, "Hey, it's Ashley, I need your help. It's an emergency, like, get in contact with me, please."
She said, "I think we have your daughter. I think we found a body. I'm sorry, but it's your daughter."
She's been murdered. Is the killer her lover?
Just miss you so much, Jack.
It would have felt like she's potentially interacting with her own Prince Charming who lives overseas.
Remember coming back. So initially, he was arrested for inflicting grievous bodily harm.
Detectives want to prove murder. The challenge to ensure suspect Jack Sapple can't use a legal loophole.
He claimed to have gone, to use his words, psychotic, and somebody suffering from psychosis can avail themselves of diminished responsibility.
Detectives gather evidence until a picture of a suspect emerges. Which piece of the puzzle will reveal who is guilty of murder? What will be a killer's mistake? there's been an overnight storm. Police are called to a home in Chelmsford, Essex, in England.
The reason the police turned up at the house was because these friends who were going round there were concerned.
19-year-old Canadian Ashley Wadsworth has been staying at the address.
Ashley sent text messages to two of her friends who were also members of the Mormon church that she'd joined having arrived in Chelmsford. And one of the messages was asking them to go because she needed help.
As paramedics arrive at the scene, they find Ashley in bed.
The police officers tried to carry out CPR on Ashley, and at that stage, it wasn't absolutely obvious or clear whether she was still alive or actually dead.
But it soon becomes clear Ashley has been brutally attacked. She's lifeless.
Whenever the police have a murder scene, the first thing they do is seal it off to preserve the integrity of the scene, and they then instruct a forensic scientist to come and examine the scene. They used a very experienced forensic scientist who examined the entirety of the house, because not only are the police looking for a cause of death, they're trying to recreate as best they can, reenact the events that took place leading up to the death. And the forensic scientist's conclusion was that the assault took place in the bedroom. Ashley was in the bedroom, on the bed at the time, and didn't move. The knife that was consistent with the size of the stab wounds was found behind a radiator in the bedroom not far from the bed, so we can be pretty confident that that was the murder weapon.
Police must uncover the truth behind Ashley Wadsworth's murder. Simon Spence will soon present evidence to a jury about a victim stranded thousands of miles from her family.
One of the aspects of this case, which was particularly difficult and sensitive, was the liaison with the family, because obviously Ashley had a very large, very close family in Canada.
It's not the smallest city in British Columbia. You'd have to drive through swaths of the province and the mountains before you hit the next really big city.
Born in Vernon, investigators learn of Ashley's happy upbringing.
Ashley was a dream child, very self-sufficient, learned everything without me showing her. Very bright, always never shy, wanting to see the world. She was fierce, loyal, always wanting to stick up for her sister, her friends. Me, yeah, she was just a delight, really.
Look how young this makes you. We were always friends. And then, like, when I had my daughter, we were, like, best friends as we got older. And, yeah, we've always been friends. We were sisters.
Ashley, though, always dreams of a life beyond her remote hometown.
She always wanted to leave, like, Vernon. It's such a small, like, close-knit town that it's, like, it becomes boring. It's not geared towards younger people. She just always wanted to go somewhere else.
It's a video.
We would watch a lot of documentaries, me and Ashley, on British history and especially England, and we just loved Harry Potter. And so that whole rainy, foggy, London streets, that was just something that we both had a passion for.
As detectives piece together Ashley's love affair with England, they uncover that it's more than just landmarks and the weather that draws her there.
I became aware of Jack when we were about 12 years old in grade 8.
When just 12 years old, Ashley forges an online relationship with Jack Seppel, a British 15-year-old from Chelmsford in Essex.
She had told me that she had met him through a girl we knew in school who she was friends with, and that he was from the UK, and that he was just like the nicest guy ever, and she thought he was cute.
It would be really exciting for a really young girl like Ashley to be meeting this slightly older boy.
At first I was like, well, who's this guy? And I wanted to make sure it wasn't some older man in his living room pretending to be. So I did speak to Jack, and yeah, he was young too at the time, and so I was like, okay.
With open and transparent access to each other's lives, Ashley and Jack are drawn into intimacy, but also to potential risks.
Digital technologies let us get access into each other's lives in a much more intimate way than you could before.
Like every teen girl, she was on the phone a lot, and especially by grade 8, making TikToks and Snapchats.
You can share every moment of your day, you can share what you're eating, who you're spending time with, without the person needing to be physically present to bring them into your world.
Happy birthday to you. Tell me when to sing it out.
As police delve for the background behind the death of Ashley, they learn how the love match between her and Jack Seppel accelerated from September 2018, her 16th birthday, a time for British royal family watching.
Around this time, Prince Harry and Prince William were often in the news in Canada, and so it would have been felt like she's potentially interacting with her own Prince Charming, who lives overseas. This was a real relationship that he formed. Jack wanted a real relationship with her.
I knew she was smitten with him. She really had at first a crush, and then always, I want to go to England.
Just miss you so much, Jack. Love you so much.
An ocean and 4,500 miles had been no obstacle. Seppel had wooed a girl with a teenage crush, and she loved it.
So he would buy her stuff, so it would come to the door, delivery through Amazon, and she would be so excited, and a little teddy bear with I love you, and then she had a picture made in the mall here. A guy was doing sketches of Jack and Ashley, and she had it framed and paid money for. I was like, wow, are you ever going to give this to him? She's like, oh, I will one day.
She's experiencing all of this with someone who has kind of 24 access to her through their internet connections and constantly be sending these reinforcing positive messages to one another.
Ashley is 16 and Jack is 19 at this time. Detectives believe that the age difference makes Ashley more vulnerable. Jack is easily able to manipulate the younger girl.
He can present himself as her Prince Charming and completely hide the darker aspects of himself, and she has limited windows into seeing what he's really like.
As the relationship progresses, detectives see signs of intimidating behavior from Jack.
Oh, my timber coming back.
Detectives find audio recordings of rants that he sent her, often about his other female friends.
This thing on my leg. I'm gonna... It's leg. Driving me crazy. I'm not ill. It's because I friend.
Yeah, you can really just hear so much rage and anger and volatility in his voice, the way he's talking in that voice message. It's really alarming to hear.
I'm gonna kill her with murder.
Unpicking the background to the discovery of the body of Ashley Wadsworth points detectives to the period around March 2020, when both Canadian and UK governments announced lockdowns because of COVID.
From this evening, I must give the British people a very simple instruction. You must stay at home.
With no avenues to meet people in the real world, Ashley and Jack spend much more time together online.
I knew there was some infatuation there, and there was a bit of when he tattooed his name, which is a bit later, I think grade 11, and I was like, oh, well, and I did have some concerns, but I honestly didn't think they'd ever meet.
He would get, frustrated over the littlest things, if she had been talking to another guy.
The fact that he's really jealous of her partners when they're not together suggests that he's very controlling and possessive of Ashley in a way that's unrealistic for someone who's living thousands and thousands of miles away.
Investigators learn that it's not just Ashley, thousands of miles away in Canada, who bears the brunt of Jack's aggression. Back home in England, Seppel often shows his family an ugly side.
He's also being verbally and physically abusive to his own mom and sister. His mom would get involved and ask Ashley to try and control Jack's behavior. To me, that's a really surprising element in this story, and it really suggests that people were putting a lot of onus on Ashley and a lot of expectations on her to control the behavior of someone whose life she's really only in peripherally.
His mom would reach out to her to say that they're not on speaking terms, and she would like her to check on him. I would tell her, like, it's not worth your time.
As detectives delve deeper into the case, they uncover that it isn't just Jack's mother and sister who rely on Ashley for help. Another young woman is pulled into his dark world.
He was definitely dating this girl, and she had come over. Don't know if she was living there, but she was at his, wherever he was living, and he had locked her in the house for some reason and was being violent towards her. She had locked herself in the bathroom and contacted Ashley because she had a knowledge of who she was in their friendship or relationship and knew that she could potentially help calm him down.
I think the fact that he has multiple relationships going on at the same time where he's exhibiting these high levels of anger and control across quite a number of them are really speaking to the volatility in his personality. This is a highly volatile young man. He's using jealousy to get control over the other women in his life.
Despite growing concerns, Ashley's family doesn't believe there's any imminent danger. They see the relationship as distant and confined to the online world.
They enjoyed talking with each other, and like they really just enjoyed each other's company, and like I got to see him, and like he would talk with me, and they would be nice, and it wasn't too bad.
Investigators, however, find messages between the couple which reveal that they had been planning a real-world future together.
In the lead up to Ashley telling her family that she's decided to go to the UK, you can really see that the exchanges between them are really positive. They're focusing on having the opportunity to connect and cuddle in person. They can't wait to cuddle. He's calling her his future wifey if he's blessed enough.
But she was her own person, and she was an adult. I couldn't keep her passport legally, and I couldn't stop her, because at 19 she's fully allowed to do what she wants.
I'm going to England. I'm so excited.
She makes the big decision to take a gap year and go and have a really big adventure in the UK, which must feel tremendously exciting, and it might feel like a whole new world is opening up.
Even when she did decide, like, I want to go, but I did have my reservations, because you don't know someone as much as you think you do, and you can't know someone until you meet them.
I mean, Ashley must be so excited to finally have the opportunity to meet this man in person who she's known for almost a decade, but has never really had the opportunity to connect with in person. And so this must just seem like a fairy tale come true, that it's finally happening.
He told me and my mom on FaceTime before she left, like, I'll protect her and I'll guard her with my life. Like, I'll make sure she's good. And I'm like, okay, like, call if you ever have any problems and stuff. So yeah, I trusted him at that point.
Ashley's family shares photos with investigators as they plot the timeline of her journey to England. Her trip in November 2021 appeared rich with promise.
And I said, text me when you get to Calgary for the transfer so I know that you made it to there, and then just text me along the way. And she said, okay, and she kissed my hand and said, I love you, and I said, I love you. And then her sister and her dad drove her.
Ashley had arrived in London in November 2021. She was now 4,500 miles from her family's protection.
She messaged me as soon as she got off, and they were together, and she kind of held her phone up, and they did a smiley face, and yeah, they were hugging, and then she was texting me on the ride home, my God, he's so nice. I was happy that it went good, the first meeting, that meeting. I mean, they'd known each other for so long, I felt like we all knew him, really.
The couple explores London, with Ashley finally experiencing the architecture and centuries-old history that she had until now only seen on TV.
I tried to give her space, but we would talk at first every couple days, every day if she wanted, and she would show me, look at the cobble streets. Everything's like it said, look at this old building, Mom. Christmas, he bought a tree and got her the cat. She loves cats, so she was excited.
Ashley settles into life in the UK. In Canada, she had been drawn to the Mormon faith. She now connects with a Mormon church in Chelmsford, where she quickly becomes a bright, sociable presence. sharing images of her adventures with Jack. Her church contact, a North American missionary visiting the UK, has chosen to remain anonymous.
We had seen pictures on Facebook, like, of them visiting Big Ben and I think, like, Tower Bridge, exciting things like that, and she said that she loved England. She loved meeting people. There was a lot of people her age within the congregation, and so she got to meet them, and that was really exciting, and she was excited to finally be back and feel the same feelings that she had felt when she was in Canada at church.
Bishop Eldon Powles is struck by how quickly Ashley connects with the church community.
In her energy, she was really nice, very bubbly, and keen to speak to other people, so she was outgoing. She clearly had connected with the missionaries that were talking to her, who had become her friends, really. And then there was someone who helped take her to church. One of our members in the congregation took her to church, and then there was people that were interacting with her. So she was really keen to get to know others.
Ashley's church friends, however, begin to notice something troubling.
Ashley had mentioned that she would need to ask for permission to meet with us even that day, to come to church with us on Sunday. And just as another 19-year-old girl, it was sort of a red flag. I wouldn't want to have to ask my boyfriend about if I could leave or if I could go somewhere with people that I knew. So we didn't think much of it, but it was something that we were just like, that is really interesting.
Messages presented to investigators reveal that by 2021, in December, the joy of Ashley's new life in England was fading.
You can really see the shift in Ashley's messages to her sister and to her friends, where it goes from being so excited about having seen Buckingham Palace and going to the Tower of London together, to suddenly talking about with Seppel how he's been trying to control her during that time. So you can see the text messages where he's asking for her passwords to log into her social media, which isn't a normal thing to do.
I had heard from Haley that they weren't getting along, but I brought it up to her and she shut me down.
We had been texting, and she had said, be careful what you say, he's watching what we're saying. And so, like, in the back of my head, I was kind of like, well, this is a little odd.
As detectives learn more of Jack Seppel's background, they uncover evidence of his controlling behavior.
Unfortunately, Jack Seppel appeared to have problems with all of his previous partners.
Ashley couldn't have known, but Jack's disturbing behavior towards women goes beyond the online rants that she'd witnessed early in their relationship.
Jack Seppel had convictions for criminal damage, for assault. He'd been made the subject of a restraining order in relation to a previous partner, and there were a number of offences of breaching that restraining order by continuing to try and make contact with her. She was clearly somebody he was obsessed with, and one of the features of this case is that he set up a fake Facebook account and contacted her whilst he was seeing Ashley Wadsworth, and indeed whilst Ashley was living with him.
Ashley wouldn't necessarily have any idea that she's walking into this behavior. This isn't about one relationship. It's about maybe more his attitude towards all women and what he expects from them and how he expects them to do what he wants when he wants it.
Two months into her 6-month trip, and Ashley's mum notices a change.
In January, I started to hear from her less. She seemed solemn, sad, quieter, looking a little paler. She was trying, obviously, to protect the relationship, protect him, because I don't think she wanted me or her father to know fully.
Ashley and Jack's relationship is deteriorating. In January 2022, disturbing news reached Canada.
Ashley called me right away. He took a bunch of pills of his, prescribed medication, and he took, the whole bottle, and then, she was freaking out because she was, trying to help him.
Whether it was a serious suicide attempt or just a cry for attention is perhaps difficult to say, but there certainly was an occasion when he self-harmed and was taken to hospital.
She was crying. She was really upset and worried about what was going on with him, and that, he wasn't going to be okay.
After his overdose, Ashley's first thoughts are for Jack. Her family, however, is more concerned about Ashley.
My thoughts were telling her to come home, because, I just thought that was weird, a lot for her to have on her plate to take care of someone when she's only 19.
So I was like, well, do you want to come home? And she's like, well, no, I love him. I'm going to get him through this. So then Ashley, being who she was as a Mormon and wanting to help him.
Perhaps Ashley's faith inspires her to selflessly care for Jack after his release from the hospital. Yet around this time, her friends at the Church of the Latter-day Saints in Chelmsford sense that she is starting to have doubts.
So we know that in our church, we aren't just married here on this earth till death do you part. There's something called the temple sealing, where you can be sealed to your spouse for all time and eternity, and that can only happen if both of you are members of the church. She had mentioned that she had wanted to get sealed in the temple, and that she knew that couldn't happen with him, and so it probably wasn't going to be him that she was going to end up with.
Ashley has every reason to fear her relationship with Jack Seppel. Detectives, when building their case, discover a folder of photographs on her social media account.
Ashley taking the steps to document the abuse really suggests she knew she was in a bad situation. This is someone who's been isolated from her family by thousands of miles, is somewhat trapped in this place because of a pandemic, and she maybe just doesn't know what to do in a foreign country to get that kind of help and what services exist to her.
She called me, and Jack had smashed a glass over top of her head. And then I answered the phone, and she was screaming and crying, and she was like, I have to clean all this up because Jack just threw a glass at my head. I started crying, and I told her you need to come home. We were on FaceTime, and Jack had started throwing objects at her head, candles and remotes and stuff at her, on FaceTime with me, and he was screaming through his teeth, and he was spitting and throwing stuff.
Ashley did the right thing in coming forward and finally disclosing the violence that she was experiencing to her family, and they were really in a difficult position as well, being so far away, how they could best help and support her.
The violence takes a chilling turn. After physically striking Ashley, Jack Seppel, unbeknownst to her family, cruelly attacks the kitten that he had once given her as a gift.
Jack's willingness to injure a harmless baby kitten speaks to two things. It's either a complete disregard for other beings, or it's also just a testament to the intensity of his volatility. He's so enraged and so prone to outwards aggression.
I don't think it killed the cat, but it clearly been violent towards it.
On February the 1st, 2022, CCTV footage captures Ashley Wadsworth walking barefoot to a neighbour's house, seeking help after being assaulted by Jack Seppel.
Ashley turned up at her door at about 8 o'clock in the morning, clearly very distressed and with injury, saying that not only had Jack Seppel beaten her up, but they'd acquired a kitten, and he'd picked this kitten up and hit it against the wall. The neighbour, quite bravely, I thought, I have to say, went with her back to the house and spoke directly to Jack Seppel, and he was apologetic, said that he would behave from now on and was very sorry for what he'd done. And with that assurance, and because she had a medical appointment, the neighbour then left.
Neighbours will one day tell detectives they have witnessed Jack's violent side before.
She'd had to reprimand Jack Seppel for his behaviour in the past, and particularly in relation to arguments with previous girlfriends. She had a 12-year-old daughter, and the daughter would get upset because of Jack Seppel's conduct, and she said, can you please moderate the way you're behaving, because it's upsetting my daughter.
He was upsetting others too. Evidence in the investigation emerges to help detectives gain a fuller picture of the grim events.
It was nighttime here, it would have been 10 at night or 12 at night. We were FaceTiming, and then all of a sudden he just literally started running at her, and he pushed her down and started punching her in the head. And then she dropped the phone, and it was on the ground kind of tilted, and I could see her getting punched in the head, and I said, I'm hanging up. I said, I'm calling to get help.
I called her and I said, we're gonna book you a flight. Okay, you're coming home.
Despite the urgency to get home to safety, Ashley is unable to leave immediately due to COVID-19 travel restrictions. In January 2022, strict regulations between the UK and Canada, including multiple negative tests and mandatory quarantine periods, make finding quick way home, all but impossible. In a calculated move, police believe to avoid suspicion, Jack Seppel agrees to help Ashley arrange her COVID test.
I called her, and she said, Jack, can you help me, show me where this place is to go get my COVID test? He said, yeah, for sure. I said, okay, so I thought, perfect, he knows we know now. The neighbor knew at that point. It was like 2 in the morning, I think, our time. If I don't hear from you, if you don't answer, I'm calling the police. So he had heard that. Both agreed.
When people are leaving violent, abusive scenarios, one of the most dangerous points for them is the moment where they are attempting to leave.
In the early hours of February 1st, while her friends and family in Canada sleep, Ashley, 4,500 miles away in Essex, makes a desperate attempt to raise the alarm.
And you can really feel the desperation in Ashley. She's reaching out to everyone she can think of to try and get a lifeline because she's realized the seriousness of the situation she's in.
Detectives will learn that on the morning of the 1st of February, Ashley has a wider network than Jack Seppel believes.
The 1st of February, it was a Tuesday, so I was driving and we had our data off. A few hours later, we had gone back home and we had turned our Wi-Fi on. We had saw that there was a bunch of texts from a Facebook account that neither of us were friends with. It was really interesting. It was a picture of Jack and Ashley as the profile picture, but it had a name of Jack. And so we were like, this is super weird. All the messages said, hey, it's Ashley, I need your help. This is my address, come pick me up. It's an emergency, like, get in contact with me, please. I'm in danger.
Haley woke up.
I got a message from Tiana in the morning saying that Ashley had messaged her. So then I was like, oh my gosh.
I had my phone on Do Not Disturb, so I wouldn't have received, like, the notification to wake me up. But I had seen I had a message 3:30 a.m. saying, hey, it's Ashley, help, I need you to contact these sister missionaries in the UK. Tell them to contact me.
So we head over to Ashley's house and we're there, and we're knocking on the door, we're calling the accounts, we're telling her, like, come outside, we're here. And we knocked on the door, we probably stood there for about 10 minutes, calling Ashley, calling the Instagram account, calling the Facebook account, asking her to come outside, telling her that we were here and we were gonna help her. We could hear noises inside, but nobody answered the door. So we walked back to the men that we were with, and they told us that if we were really worried, that we should call the cops.
At 4:13 p.m., police arrive at the scene.
Police went to the address, and Jack Seppel was lying on the bed next to Ashley's body, talking to his sister on FaceTime.
Jack Seppel has brutally attacked Ashley and video called his sister to tell her what he's done.
The brutality of the force that was used, and the degree of force, and the number of stab wounds, really does make this stand out as one of the more horrific killings I've dealt with. Initially, he was arrested for inflicting grievous bodily harm. Once the full extent of the injuries, the 90-plus stab wounds to the chest, and the mark around the neck indicating strangulation, were discovered. As soon as a paramedic had pronounced Ashley dead, then he was rearrested on suspicion of murder.
The police had called me and asked me, like, what my sister looked like. And, like, I just said, like, she had blue eyes and, like, freckles and brown hair.
And her passport's in there, so she has ID, so. And she said, I think we have your daughter. I think we found a body. I'm sorry, but it's your daughter.
My mom started screaming, and then, like, it was just really awful. It was so awful.
I didn't believe it because I couldn't see her. So it was really hard for me to, I kept thinking this, that she was going to call. She'd say, oh God, it was his ex, and not me. But she never called.
While police forensically examine the scene, the Bishop of the Church of the Latter-day Saints is asked to undertake a heart-rending task.
Following Ashley's death, I was asked to identify Ashley. So I had to go to the chapel arrest in Chelmsford. It's an experience that I've never done before. police constable was there to ask me some questions, and they just let me know what was going to happen because it's unusual to see a dead body, and so they prepped me as well as they could.
While her friends in the UK and family in Canada are devastated by events, Jack Sapple is taken for questioning at Chelmsford Police Station. In his first interview with officers, Sapple refuses to explain what has happened to Ashley.
The call to the sister was to tell her what he had done, and he was in the process of doing that when the police arrived and kicked the door open. So he plainly felt the need to unburden himself to somebody, but not the police. And, of course, having been arrested and interviewed, he made no comment in interview, so it didn't give the police any information at all about what had happened, why it had happened, what had led up to it, and so forth. And so all of those missing pieces of the jigsaw we had to put into place.
Sapple does say that he wasn't in control of his actions, ceding a potential line of mitigation, potentially reducing the charge from murder to manslaughter.
He claimed to have gone, to use his word, psychotic. Now, psychotic has a very specific meaning, and somebody suffering from psychosis can avail themselves of diminished responsibility as a partial defence. The difficulty with loss of control is there has to be what's called a qualifying trigger. There has to be something that's said or done that sparks the loss of control. And here, if our theory was right, that it was Ashley saying, "I'm leaving you and I'm going back to Canada," that couldn't have been a qualifying trigger, because it has to be something that is perceived as doing a serious wrong to the attacker. And clearly that wouldn't have qualified.
The digital fingerprint Sapple left at the scene suggests someone who is very much in control of his behaviour.
He took a video message of himself with my sister's body and was asking me to forgive him. And he was saying, "Haley, I killed your sister." I just thought, like, what the I'm sorry, I'm swearing, but it's just like, I couldn't believe that. I was like, why would you ever want to contact me?
The police recovered his phone when they searched the house, and they found on it the video clips of him talking to camera with Ashley's body next to him. And of course, from that phone, they were able to recover a number of text messages, Facebook accounts, and so forth. And that was material that we put before the judge because it showed the pattern of behaviour that linked into his previous offending.
Would the discovery of the phone evidence prove to be a killer's mistake, one which will lead to a conviction for murder? Jack Sapple appears at court on the 10th of October 2022. Ashley's family travels from Canada.
We went to the court and we met with her attorney, like, separately before. We had a meeting room, a little waiting room, and then we went in, and that's the first time I seen him in person. And I stared at him a little, and he just kept staring at me.
Despite the brutality of the crime, Jack Sapple could face a more lenient punishment if a psychiatric report suggests he acted with diminished responsibility.
When you prosecute a murder case, and the defence, you know they've got a psychiatric report, but they don't serve it, that speaks volumes. It tells you that, first of all, the psychiatrist doesn't believe there's a defence of diminished responsibility, but also, quite often, a psychiatrist, particularly in a case of domestic violence, will make some quite damaging comments about the nature of the defendant himself and about his coercive and controlling behaviour.
The psychiatric report confirms Jack Sapple was in full control of his actions. He is not psychotic, as he's tried to claim. He decides now to plead guilty to the murder of Ashley.
The sentencing judge described Jack Sapple as a dangerous individual and imposed a minimum term to serve of 23.5 years.
I was glad that there was no big trial. I was glad that he did get life. I mean, I'll be 67 by the time he's out, and I don't live there, thank God.
The degree of injury, the strangulation coupled with stabbing, and the huge number of stab wounds that he inflicted, plus, of course, his history, all led to the judge saying he was a highly dangerous individual. Personally, I think it's highly unlikely that the parole board will consider him eligible for parole until many years after he serves his minimum term.
To have left a trail of evidence of his violence, controlling nature and abuse, evidence like recorded threats and anger, was a big mistake in avoiding a murder conviction.
There was multiple girls that he was infatuated with, that he had stalking behavior, violent episodes, his mental health, like all of this. I'm still learning stuff today.
It definitely makes you think twice about everything and rethink everything he might have said or she had said. Like, was this his whole plan all along? Like, who knows? It's such a crazy reaction. That's not normal to do that. It's not normal to take somebody's life for whatever reason.
Apart from his initial disproven claim of being psychotic, Seppel has never explained why he brutally abused Ashley over a period of months before killing her.
So we had to draw the conclusion from the fact that the timing of the booking of the flight, they were very close in time, and obviously she must have said to him at some stage, "I'm leaving you."
For those left behind, some consolation from their faith.
I thank God for my religion, and I thank God every day that I'm going to see her again. And may not be in obviously in this life, but I know I'll see her again. I know her spirit's here, and I know she's guiding us. I feel her strength. Going to England, I'm not a traveler. Like, all of that was so hard for me, and I felt her pushing me on, and I feel her around me all the time.
And in our faith, we know that life does not end after we die, that our spirits live on forever and ever, and that's actually a scripture that we read at her vigil.
When Jack Seppel ended the life of his girlfriend Ashley Wadsworth, he underestimated the strength of her community, one determined to hold him accountable for his horrific crime. Now, as he serves a 23-year prison sentence, those critical moments and missteps that ultimately led to his conviction are clear.
He was clearly highly disturbed at the time, that's apparent, from the short video clip he made of himself after the event. Not disturbed enough to give him a medical defence, but he was clearly very exercised and very disturbed. And that was material that we put before the judge.
Leaving behind a trail of evidence, his violence, controlling nature and abuse, was clear for all to see. Recorded threats and outbursts of anger became the undeniable proof that sealed his fate. In a relationship that began online, it was the very digital footprint that he left behind which ultimately proved to be a killer's mistake.
Ask yourselves, who, other than a murderer, would conceal a body? Who other than a murderer would want to conceal the cause of death?
Good afternoon, please, Scotland.
I've just come in here, and there's like a full skeleton.
Right, okay, just stay where you are. Officers have been dispatched, okay?
At the end of all of the work you carried out, you would be unable to say whether this man had died a natural death or an unnatural one.
Yes, I can't say.
Keep thinking to yourselves, how can I say that this was murder? When the prosecutor acknowledges he's got no evidence to show how the death occurred.
Did you have a brother, Ian Coots?
Yes. I'm worried that because they don't know how Ian died, that they might find him not guilty.
The accused, David Barnes, sits in that dock, innocent. Presumed innocent by our law.
There is only one sentence for murder, and that is life in prison. If it's not proved that the accused assaulted and murdered Ian Coots, then you must acquit.
When you consider all of the evidence, I suggest that what will emerge is a compelling, convincing case in which you will find David Barnes guilty of the murder and guilty of attempting to defeat the ends of justice.
Your verdict must not be based on speculation or guesswork. The only verdict open to you is one of murder. If it's not murder, it's nothing.
This is a murder trial and it involves the death of a man called Ian Coots, who was last seen alive on the 2nd of September 2019. The accused in this case, David Barnes, was someone who was known to Ian Coots. I will suggest that David Barnes was responsible for the death and he had a motive. The two biggest challenges in this case is when did death occur and how did death occur? I have to establish that death was as a result of murder.
My defence is that the accused is presumed innocent. Let the prosecutor prove otherwise. We are not seeking to establish the truth. The criminal trial is not about truth, it's about proof. The focus is whether the allegations made by the state against the citizen can be proved or not. You prove it.
David Barnes, please take a seat.
Because if you don't prove it, the law says David Barnes is an innocent man.
Switchboard.
Lord, I appear on behalf of the panel, David Barnes. He pleads not guilty.
Okay.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, because of the presumption of innocence, the burden of proof, the prosecution case goes first. Advocate Deputy.
Thank you, my lord. The first witness for the Crown is James Fenton.
Okay, raise your right hand to take the oath. Repeat after me the following words. I do solemnly and sincerely.
I do solemnly and sincerely.
And truly.
And truly.
Declare and affirm.
Declare and affirm.
That I will tell the truth.
That I will tell the truth.
The whole truth.
The whole truth.
And nothing but the truth.
Nothing but the truth.
Okay? Advocate Deputy.
Do you have a hobby which involves visiting disused and abandoned properties?
Yes.
Do you just explore these buildings? Yeah. Do you take photographs?
Yes.
On the 27th of September 2020, were you intending to go and explore Whitehill Industrial Estate?
Yes.
I'm going to play some drone footage I'd like you to watch. You recognise this as the Whitehill Industrial Estate?
Yes.
Did you enter one of these units?
Yes, we'd been looking in most of them.
Right. Okay. You see there what appears to be Unit 99. Did you enter that part?
Yes.
Do you see to the right there's a small room?
Yes.
Did you go into that area?
Yes.
What did you find?
First, I thought it was just like animal bones. And then I went in and I had a big look, but there was stuff over the top. So I kicked like a wee black tray off the top of it. And then that's when I seen like a foot. And then when I looked in further, you could see the back of the skull up the other end. It was when I noticed like the mummified skin on the back of the neck and on the back of the ankle.
My lord, I propose to show a photograph of the remains, and I just give notice, ladies and gentlemen, as to what they're about to see.
So I take it you've selected it's for information rather than...
It is.
The shop.
Consider carefully whether it's necessary and how often it should be done.
Okay, Advocate Deputy, when you're ready.
And is that what you saw on that occasion?
Yes.
Thank you. Take that off, please. Having discovered the remains, did you phone the police?
Yes.
And tell them what you'd found?
Yes.
I had never been to this area before. I was called out to the scene. It was an area that had just been completely neglected for many years, and this individual had been callously dumped. It was a pretty sad scene, to be honest. Certainly not where you want your loved one's final resting place to be. Pretty much looks the same as it did on the day that I first came here. Dumping ground for those that choose to fly to it. Well, there's old sofas and fridges and parts of cars and everything here. You were thinking, why? Why have you ended up here? Why have you died, and why are you in Whitehill Industrial Estate? It was just lying from head at the left and feet propped up against the wall on the right there. When I saw the remains, my first thought was there was no remnants of clothing really other than one shoe, and it was quite clear to me and to others that there was something suspicious around this death. The first big question in my mind was, who is this person? We really couldn't take the case any further forward until we identified who the person was.
Advocate Deputy. Thank you, my lord. Next witness is Detective Sergeant Scott Roxburgh. Were you deployed as the crime scene manager in connection with human remains discovered at Whitehill Industrial Estate, Glenrothes?
I was, yes.
Was one of the first objectives to discover the identity of the remains?
Yes, it was, yes.
Did that involve specialists with skills in facial reconstruction?
It did, yes.
Was it possible to create an image as to how this person might have looked in life?
It was, yes.
And I've put on the screen production number 14, and is that the image that was created?
Yes, that's the image that was created, yes. When you see the person, you can see their eyes, you can see what they would have looked like. It certainly makes things a lot more real. You then start to ask yourself who he is. Does he have family? Are his parents still alive? Has he got children? You're just desperate for information. We all thought there's a good chance that this person's going to be on the DNA database, but that wasn't the case. We searched the missing person database, didn't get any hits, so we looked at known homeless individuals that were known to sleep rough in the local area, but we didn't seem to be getting any breaks whatsoever, no matter how hard we tried. The image was released to the media by the DCI.
Our inquiries up to this point have been unable to identify this man, and we know that he was at least 35 years of age. This man may have been a father, may have been a brother, he may have been an uncle. My hope is that the family will recognise the man and be able to provide us with information that will assist in identifying him.
It was only after a few hours of that going out that a call came into the incident room. A member of Fife Council, he said that she thought that the image that had been put out in the media resembled that of Ian Coots. And she provided a bit of context around that with regards to Ian Coots' council house having been abandoned, which was near to where the remains were found in Kinglassie. And from that point on, the investigation really gathered pace.
It's a matter of agreement that the remains are those of Mr. Ian Coots, last seen in person on the 2nd September 2019, and remains found on the 27th of September 2020. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you very much.
I remember seeing on the news that remains had been found in Glenrothes. Never for 1 minute thinking it would be my brother. But it was Ian. He was the oldest of the family. There was 10 years between us. I was the baby. Ian is a wee boy. And it looks like my mum's gave him a really bad haircut. Growing up, Ian was a bit of a cheeky chappy, always in a wee bit of bother. When Ian was 16, he left the house to join the army. I was only 6 at the time. Looking back, I think he struggled when he come out of the army, getting used to civilian life. And there was probably a lot more going on behind the scenes that we just didn't pick up on. But just like a lot of families do, you grow apart, you lead different lives, you have kids, you move away, and that's what happened to me and Ian. But we're still brother and sister, and we still loved each other. He was just a nice, simple man that wouldn't do anybody any harm whatsoever. He lived in a nice wee peaceful area, and the thought, who could have done that to you, and why would they have done that? In my head, there was nothing to gain from doing that to Ian. Nothing. He was just a simple man living a simple life. And that got took away from him.
The next witness is Audrey Reid. Could we put the computer on, please? Do you recognise that as a picture of Ian?
Yes.
Is Ian the person sitting next to the table with his arms outstretched?
Yes.
When was the last time you saw Ian Coots?
Quite a few years ago, round about 2018.
As of 2018, when was the time prior to that you'd been in touch with him?
I couldn't say.
Right. But should we understand then that you were not in constant contact with him? Or he with you, is that correct? Now, in 2019, I don't need an address, but where were you living?
Near Montrose.
Near Montrose?
In Angus.
Right. Were you residing in England in 2019?
No.
No. There is an element of theatre in a trial. Some evidence will be led which might not seem important at the time, but will have relevance to evidence led later in the case. Any other sister of Ian's residing in England in 2019?
No.
No. Okay, thank you. Was he married at one point?
He was.
And did he have children?
Yes, 3 children.
3 children, right. Would it be fair to say that for various reasons you had drifted apart?
Yes.
Yes.
My mum was married to our dad for 10 plus years, and the dynamics in the relationship, it just broke down. So my mum felt it best that, if we were to leave. How old were you? You were?
I think about 5 to 6.
That was it, and I was about 2.5.
Yeah, we moved down to Colchester. Yeah. I remember leaving that day. We saw them then and then didn't see them again until I was an adult.
I think we tried to sort of form a bond again, didn't we? But it was quite difficult.
It's complicated.
Yeah.
And then I haven't seen him for like 10 years, 11 years, until obviously we got this phone call.
I just wanted to be here because he was still our dad, and he really died in an undignified way. You kind of almost feel a sense of guilt in a way because we were estranged, but he was still our dad and there's still a lot of feelings there. We could have had that chance to get back in contact with him, but the fact that someone's taken that chance away for us to ever be able to reconnect with him, I think that was quite gut-wrenching.
Thank you, my lord. Next witness is Kerry-Ann Shearer. Dr. Shearer is a pathologist. And what is meant by the term forensic pathologist?
A forensic pathologist is a pathologist who looks to ascertain the cause of death in cases.
In broad terms, just describe how you went about your task with these remains.
So this was a very difficult and complicated case, trying to determine how long the assailant had been at the scene, and is this where this person was killed, or had they been killed somewhere else and brought to the scene? The body underwent a full CT examination at the time of the post-mortem.
Were you able to ascertain a cause of death in this case?
I wasn't, no.
Now, could you turn to page 4, please? Could you read that for us, please?
The general absence of skin and soft tissue, in addition to no chest or abdominal organs being present, makes it impossible to ascertain the cause of death in this case. But notably, there was evidence of charring to a number of different areas of soft tissue and bone.
So, would one possible explanation for the charring be that someone attempted to set fire to the skeleton?
Yes.
Right, thank you very much.
The question of how death was caused is absolutely fundamental to this case. The question which the pathologist wants to answer in every case was not answered here. If the prosecutor doesn't know how they died, and the best medical scientific evidence can't say how they died, then how can the prosecution prove that he was murdered, and murdered by David Barnes? Then I say they can't. And that's the focus of my attack. Dr. Shearer, you will very rarely find yourself unable to ascertain a cause of death. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely, yes. We always want to find a cause of death.
But at the end of all the work you carried out and all of the expertise you brought to bear, you would be unable to say whether this man had died a natural death or an unnatural one.
Yes, I can't say.
I say there's a gap created by the pathologist's evidence. It's a gap which covers the fundamental question in the case. When, where and how, and by whom, was Ian Cootes murdered? And if you can't answer the when, where and how, you don't get to ask the question, by whom? And that's the gap. That's where the story breaks down. But it's a pretty fundamental point, which I have to exploit.
Advocate Nick. Thank you, my lord. The next witness is Valerie Henderson.
This is what we term a circumstantial case. I don't have direct evidence of what occurred to Ian Cootes that led to his death, so the task is to build a case on the surrounding circumstances, which would start with evidence of why someone would want to harm Ian Cootes.
What was your role in 2019?
Okay, so people claiming benefits, universal credit would be allocated to work coaches, and we would try and help them look for work.
Did that involve someone called Ian Cootes?
Yes.
Now, could you have before you, please, Crown Production 42?
Yes, this is his universal credit records, yeah.
But on the 27th of August 2019, was it right to say he was due to receive quite a bit of back money, £2,017.76 to be paid, so he would get that as benefit.
Yes.
So in August of 2019, he was going to be a bit more flush with money than he would normally be. Would that be accurate? Thank you very much.
Mr. Mixwell? I have no cross-examination.
Thank you.
The prosecution may say there's clear evidence of a motive for murder. It doesn't make sense to me. I would hope the jury would ask themselves the question, would someone really murder another human being for that sum of money? If the jury don't accept that, the risk the prosecutor runs is that he weakens his case for the murder by pinning his case on a motive.
Okay, right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll adjourn now and we'll see you tomorrow sharp at 10 o'clock.
Once we'd identified Ian, it was really, really important to gather all the victimology. So, who is the victim? How do they lead their life? What do they do? What do they spend their money on? Nobody had a bad word to say about Ian. You know, and he was just generally known for being a cheery, jovial chap about the village. He was a man of routine, went to the same shops at the same time and the same day of the week. We looked at his finances, for example. He spent his money in the same pattern for a number of years, and it was quite clear that after September 2019 there was a complete change in the pattern of spending. His house was just up here on the right-hand side. Ian stayed in what's typically known as a 4 in a block, and neighbours, both upstairs through the wall and diagonally upstairs from him, were all able to provide little bits of evidence. And it was quite clear that there was a very close association with David Barnes, and that he was doing some decorating work for Ian in the flat. So that's Ian's front door right in front of me. The upstairs neighbours, they turned out to be really significant witnesses.
Thank you, my lord. The next witness is Kevin O'Donoghue. Could we put the screen on? Label 51. Do you recognise that as Main Street, Kinglassie, in the block of flats?
Yes.
Is that the entrance to Ian's property?
Yes. And the entrance to mine is the side. That's it. That's my entrance, yes.
Did you get to know Ian Coots reasonably well as a neighbour?
Yeah, he was always out in his garden weeding, and any time I would see him, he'd say hello.
Were you aware of work being undertaken in his flat?
From memory, I think he was having a new bathroom fitted, or flooring even.
And was that around the time he went missing?
Yes, it was, yes.
Did you see the workmen attending for that purpose? Did you ever speak to the workmen about where Ian was?
Yes.
Could you have, before your Crown production, 179? Well, if I just read it to you. Yeah. The next time I saw the workman at the house, he told me Ian definitely wasn't coming back, as he was going to live with his sister in England. Is that what it says in the statement?
It does say that, yes.
Did something happen involving your wheelie bin?
It did, yes. This was obviously the time Ian went missing. I saw the guy who was doing the work putting a bin in the back of his car.
What type of car was it?
It was a silver Volkswagen Golf.
Could we put the screen on, please? Photograph number 1. Does that look like the car?
Yes.
That you saw? Did you take that photograph?
No, my wife did.
Just tell us what you saw happen.
He was actually putting the bin in through the back for the boot.
Did you form the impression that there was something heavy in the bin?
Heavier than an empty bin, yes.
As a consequence of that, did you send a text message?
Yes, I did. I sent it the day after to Ian, asking, why's the guy taking my bin?
So, if the date there is Wednesday, 4th September 2019, yesterday would be the 3rd of September 2019, do you agree?
Yes.
So that was that when it happened? Okay. Have you ever been to Whitehill Industrial Estate in Glenrothes?
No.
Had you ever gone into any of the disused units?
Absolutely not.
No. Could you look, please, at Crown production number 24? Is that a part of a letter which you had received at some point?
Yeah, it's basically my overdraft.
And ultimately, did you discard that letter in your grey bin?
Yes.
Right. Was that a grey bin that you saw the workman with?
Yes.
Yes. If this piece of paper was found at Whitehill Industrial Estate, could you offer any explanation as to how it got there?
Not by myself, no.
Not by yourself?
No.
Okay. Could you describe the person who was trying to get the bin into the back of the car?
Kind of tallish, slimish build.
Could you look round the court and tell me if you see anyone who resembles him?
No, I can't. No.
Right, thank you. Had Mr. O'Donoghue identified the accused as the man he saw, that would have absolutely cemented the case, because our case is that Ian Coots was in that wheelie bin, that David Barnes was responsible for the murder.
So I have to think about other means of making that link.
Advocate Deputy.
Thank you, my lord. The next witness is Crown Witness number 18, and I understand the arrangements are in place.
Yeah, it's a live link, isn't it?
It's a live link.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, can you see and hear me okay?
Yes.
Were you in a relationship with a man by the name of David Barnes?
Yes.
When did that relationship start?
August 2018.
Were you in fairly frequent contact by means of text messages?
Yes.
On the 3rd of September 2019, were you trying to get in touch with him that day?
Yes.
Were you having any success?
No.
I'm going to show you a document. It's a series of text messages, and you see that the message says this: don't rush yourself. You're clearly busy, that you've practically went off the radar for messages and didn't answer. Is that a message you sent to David Barnes's device?
Yes.
Do you see the next message? A message from David Barnes's device. I forgot to turn my data on. Sorry, babe. I'm on way home now. Exclamation mark and a series of crosses or kisses. Do you see that message?
Yes.
Over the following months, did he appear to be relatively wealthy compared to the months prior to September 2019?
Yes.
Do you know the source of that income?
No.
Now, this is production number 30. Do you recognise that vehicle?
Yes. It looks like my car.
Do you recognise the person in the vehicle?
No.
Look at the second photograph. Close up. Do you see that? Do you recognise?
David Barnes.
That's David Barnes. And he's holding something, is that right? Do you know what that is?
Phone.
Did you recognise the phone as well as David Barnes?
Yes. It's familiar to the phone he had.
I can see a slightly orange surround on the phone. Is that how his phone was?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Bishop's Bar, were you cross?
No cross, thank you.
Okay.
The witness was able to identify the accused as the person in that photograph. But the challenge for me is to lead evidence that will demonstrate a link, evidentially, between the accused and the industrial estate.
Were you asked to assist in the investigation by the police into the death of Ian Coots?
Yes, that is correct.
What was your task in that case?
I was asked to look at material from Volkswagen Golf, and in particular the carpet from the front footwell. This contains all the material that potentially transfers from the driver of that vehicle, transferred from a place he'd been.
What did you find there?
What we recovered was plant material, and it was the same species as found outside the industrial units in Glenrothes.
Could that be explained as one possible explanation that plant material, as you've described, has been uplifted from Unit 99 Whitehill Industrial Estate and has come into contact with the carpet of the Volkswagen car?
Yes, that is correct.
Right, thank you.
So what? So what if you conclude that David Barnes had some involvement in depositing the remains of Ian Coots in that place, using that wheelie bin? So what? Because bear in mind the question is this: not did he deposit the remains there, but did he murder him? And those are two different questions, and they are capable of having two different answers.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the evidence you're going to hear today. Keep an open mind. Do not begin to decide this case until you've heard all of the evidence. Your role is as judges, not detectives, not your job to solve the case.
Every time we walked into that court, I stayed, I would never took my eyes off him. Just to say, you're not winning. That's why. I see you. And I wanted him to see me and his daughters was there because Ian had a family. I wanted him to see that. He had people that loved him.
Because I'm not able to establish how Ian Coots died, if the accused were to say that he came upon Ian Coots in his apartment and found him dead, then there's nothing I could do to contradict that. That would result in an acquittal if that was accepted by the jury. So I had to think about that and counter it. Could you have before you, please, Crown Production number 38? And is that a transcript of the interview which took place at Falkirk Police Office on the 15th of December 2021?
Yes.
Would it be correct to say that throughout most of the interview, Mr. Barnes essentially responded by saying no comment?
Yes.
Could we put the screen on, please? Do you recognise that as an image from the interview with Mr. Barnes?
Yes.
You've not gone in the house and found him lying there dead. But you know what? Got his PIN number. I'm in a really bad place. So that's not happened. No, that's not happened. Come on.
So in that excerpt, your colleague suggested a scenario. So you've not gone into the house and found him lying there dead and gone, you know what? I've got his PIN number. I'm in a really bad place, so that's not happened. And Mr. Barnes replied, no.
Yes.
The prosecution have taken one aspect of a lengthy interview and presented it as important evidence. And I intend that the jury should hear the whole context. Because this is a man whose word could not be relied upon at all, who lied about all sorts of things.
Thank you.
The one thing you couldn't expect from David Barnes at that interview was an honest answer to any question.
Good morning, Detective Constable Young. What we would see if we played the whole interview or read through the transcript is the ridiculous lies he had told in other contexts. Is that correct?
Yes.
You'd had a look at medical records for him, in which he had claimed some things to have happened which were complete rubbish. Is that right?
Yes.
Claimed he'd been a tree surgeon who'd been operating a chainsaw and fallen out of a tree and dislocated his shoulder, didn't he?
Yes.
And that was just rubbish.
I admitted to Mr. Barnes during the interview that was a lie, yes.
So there were many examples which you were able to put to him of just the most ridiculous lies being told by him.
In regards to those points that you've... Yeah.
And we go to page 86, towards the foot of that, your colleagues asking, so you've not gone into the house and found him lying there dead and gone, you know what, I've got his PIN number, I'm in a really bad place, so that's not happened. And David Barnes says no. He didn't know whether he was telling the truth or lying about that when he said no.
Yes.
When Mr. Barnes answers questions in this interview, you've no idea whether he's telling the truth or lying. Thank you.
Chances are that Mr. Barnes will be furious that I did that. But it was a tactical decision, and that's what I'm there for, to make those decisions. I want the jury to realise that his truthfulness is suspect. So so that they don't exclude the very real possibility that that scenario could have explained everything that happened in this case, which would make him not a murderer.
Advocate Depute.
Thank you, my lord. A substantial amount of evidence has been agreed and is embodied in a joint minute. There's no doubt this will save several days of court time.
Right, ladies and gentlemen, the facts set out in the joint minute of agreement must be accepted by you as proven fact, as conclusively proved, and must be taken into account when you come to deliberate and consider your verdicts. I'll invite the Crown Junior, Miss Campbell, to read it to you.
My trial strategy is that some event took place on the 3rd of September and that Ian Coots died at the hands of the accused. I don't know how, but when you look at his conduct in the immediate aftermath, then this is a compelling case for murder.
Between 31st August 2019 and 18th January 2020, David Barnes did order a variety of goods and services at a total cost of £606.69 and did make payment via a PayPal account held by Ian Coots. 2. On various occasions between September 2019 and January 2020, David Barnes did, by means of a Nationwide Building Society bank card in the name of Ian Coots, obtain fuel to the value of £398.39. On 29th of October 2019, David Barnes did apply for credit facilities and a credit card in the name of Ian Coots, and in support
I would hope the jury have that mental picture of David Barnes in these various places, just thinking about the fact he is plundering the money of a deceased person.
18. On 9th of December 2019, at Rothes Hall, David Barnes did pretend that he was the lawful holder of a bank card in the name of Ian Coots to purchase tickets for an entertainment show, and did thus induce it. 28. David Barnes did use a bank card in the name of Ian Coots, and from automatic teller machines did obtain £5,600.
It's not just one or two transactions. There are 91 occasions when he assumes the identity of Ian Coots.
Thank you.
With that, I formally close the Crown case.
The joint minutes point significantly to David Barnes having committed various crimes of fraud. But as for winning the prosecution case in their own right, no, they don't. And they don't have me on the ropes because there are things that are not disputed. I have to acknowledge and accept that they're right, but still come to the question, what is it about those agreed facts which can make you sure that David Barnes murdered Ian Coots?
Mr. McSwan, you want some time just to consider the...
Yes, but an important stage of the trial has been reached. It is desirable that at this stage Counsel have the opportunity to take instructions, and I would welcome an opportunity to have some further time.
Well, you're well entitled to this. Right, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. McSwan has requested to have some time just to reflect on where he is in relation to the defence case. So the best thing to do is to adjourn now, and we'll see you at 2 o'clock.
In every trial, the question will arise, should the accused give evidence? When the question arises, I will say, if you give evidence and you're convicted, you will spend the rest of your sentence wishing you hadn't. And if you don't give evidence and you're convicted, you will spend the rest of your sentence wishing you had. The decision is always for the accused. I can't make that decision for them.
Court!
Mr. McSwan.
Thank you, Lord. I'm grateful for the opportunity to consider the position at the close of the Crown case and take instructions from David Barnes, and I can advise the court that in consequence of that, there will be no evidence led or given on behalf of the accused.
Okay. Right, ladies and gentlemen, that's all the evidence you're going to hear in the case. So the next stage of procedure is to hear speeches on Wednesday morning. Okay, so see you Wednesday, 10 o'clock.
Court!
case is that we do not have a cause of death. The jury will be invited to convict someone of the murder of a man when we have no idea how he died. So that's quite a challenge. I have to explain how the surrounding evidence is such that it would allow an inference that the accused was responsible for his death. Because they may well ask themselves, how can we convict someone of murder when we don't know what he did?
The prosecution does not have a crime scene where the murder took place. They don't have a means by which the murder was achieved. They don't have a murder weapon. They don't have any proof of injuries. They don't have any eyewitness. They don't have anyone hearing the kind of sounds of a disturbance one might associate with a murderous attack. And in most cases of murder, you would expect them to have some or all of these. If you don't have these things, the prosecution can be satisfied that David Barnes murdered Ian Coots. But the question is, can the jury be satisfied? Then I say, they can't.
It's called the Diet, His Majesty's Advocate against David Barnes. Please take a seat.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're about your speeches, so when you're ready, I can take.
May it please the court. On the 27th of September 2020, James Fenton found something he did not expect. A human skeleton. And you know that the remains are those of the late Ian Coots. You might ask yourselves who, other than a murderer, would conceal a body. David Barnes assumed the identity of Ian Coots and proceeded to avail himself of his money and pretended to be him in order to acquire goods and services. How would he be able to?
None of that was disputed. It may be you have little difficulty in accepting the Crown's submissions that he was a liar, a fraudster, and a thief, and a cheat. But how far does that take you in considering the charge of murder? Convicting him of murder because you think he should be punished for fraud would not at all be the right thing to do.
Charge 8, David Barnes tells people Ian Coots is with his sister in England. Ian Coots didn't have a sister living in England. Why is he perpetrating this lie that Ian Coots is somewhere else? Why would he do that unless he was wanting to divert attention away from his own conduct? You'll recall what the policeman said. So this is not a case of you just finding him dead and taking advantage of the fact you knew his PIN number. What did David Barnes respond to that? He said no. He said no.
So there's a plausible scenario which fits all of the evidence in the same way as the prosecution's theory does. And if it's just a case of saying, well, which scenario are we to prefer? I can help you with that. The presumption of innocence. David Barnes sits in that dock, innocent, presumed innocent by our law.
Crown never has to prove a motive, but I suggest there was a motive here, and that is financial gain. I suggest Ian Coots was in that bin, and that David Barnes killed Ian Coots and put him in the bin, took the bin and emptied the bin out in Unit 99. But there is more. There is more. David Barnes attempting to burn the body to conceal the identity, to conceal the cause of his death. Therefore, I invite you to find David Barnes guilty of the murder and guilty of attempting to defeat the ends of justice.
Your verdict must not be based on speculation or guesswork. How did Ian Coots die? If you can't tell yourselves in your discussions that he was murdered, then you can't bridge that gap by guesswork. We heard evidence from a highly experienced pathologist who told us it was quite possible he died a natural death. ladies and gentlemen, I say it is simply not possible to be sure to the required standard that this man has been proved to have committed murder. And if that's the case, the true verdict, according to the evidence, is one of acquittal. And I thank you for your patience. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there are no time limits on your deliberations. The ball is entirely in your court. There are no time pressures on you. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you now retire to consider your verdicts?
Look at the jury and what they're thinking and how they've seen the case. Have they seen it the same as me? And it's really hard to tell. It's in their hands. Court! I'm worried that because they don't know how Ian died, that they might find him not guilty. I'm scared that he's going to walk. And just knowing that he could just walk up to my door any day. I'm just terrified in case it's not the verdict that we want to get.
I think the defence presented a strong argument in the closing speech. I think the case really sits on a rather than edge. If David Barnes walks free, we have to accept it. We have to accept the verdict from the jury. We have to accept that we've gone through the criminal justice process, and if that is the outcome, that is the outcome. Just a waiting game now.
As a High Court of Justiciary in Court Number 3, His Majesty's Advocate against David Barnes. Court Number 3, this is the verdict.
Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, will your spokesperson please stand? Can you confirm, have you reached a verdict?
Yes.
What is your verdict in respect of the accused David Barnes in relation to charge 1 on the indictment?
Guilty.
Is this verdict unanimous or by a majority?
Majority.
Please be seated whilst I record the verdict. Thank you.
Stand up. What you did was callous, the murder of a man who did you no harm. To the contrary, he gave you work. You have displayed no remorse or taken no responsibility for the crimes you have committed. There is only one sentence for murder, and that is life in prison, which will be coming your way. I'll wait for the Criminal Justice Social Work report. I'll then tell you what the sentence is. What you did was despicable and evil. Take him away.
There are so many people's lives which will be significantly impacted by the words uttered by the spokesperson of the jury. A verdict of guilty, of course, is an achievement and recognition of the work that many, many people did. I hope for the family there's a sense of justice having been served, and it might make things a little easier. It will not alleviate the pain and anguish they undoubtedly still suffer.
There's a little bit of closure. It'll never be full closure because we don't know what happened to our dad. And only he will ever know that.
If I could see the jury, I would love to thank them. Just a huge thank you. Because you do feel grateful and that they've listened. You do feel that you've had justice done.
I thought the jury were going to acquit him. But there we are, that's what we have trials for. Every defence lawyer is familiar with the question, how can you defend them when you know they're guilty? I don't know who's guilty and who's guilty, it's not my business. The law presumes him to be innocent. Defence counsel's role is to ensure that this democratic country can boast of a proper criminal justice system in which the rights of the accused citizen are fully protected. And that's why I defend them.